coaching the Kentucky Derby, the world's most well-known race. Next to me, I have one of the most beloved figures in racing, that is Mike Smith. And Mike, you are in a position to make history in a number of ways with a very lightly raced horse named Taiba. First of all, tell us what sets the Derby apart from every other race.
Well, it's America's race, in it. I mean, it has been for many, many years. Even people in other countries dream of winning the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it's that big of a race. It's the best 3-year-old race I would say in the world.
Have you ever been on a plane or in any other circumstance traveling, encountering somebody who doesn't know anything about racing? They ask what you do, because obviously you got to make some conversation, and you say, I'm a jockey. Do you get that question? Have you ever won the Derby?
Oh yeah, well, that's always, especially if they're not a true racing fan. They just kind of know about the Kentucky Derby, so they always ask, "Have you ever won the Derby?" And of course, now I'm blessed to have said yes, I have, actually twice.
Yes, and
hopefully 3 times.
Right, and that first time with Giacomo at 50-1. Do you think that was unfair for the betting public to send him off that high?
That year, Ren, the 3-year-old division was very strong in the East Coast that year, and Giacomo hadn't really won none of the major preps, but he had always ran very, very well in them. Finished in second and third, and just about in all of them actually, and really finishing strong and galloping out strong. And back then, the California tracks were really favoring speed, so I always thought that when he got back, to Kentucky or back east, period, that those tracks would suit him a whole lot better, and they sure did.
Yeah, and how often have you heard from Ken Rudolph about scoring on that win?
To this day, that's his biggest, I think his biggest win ever.
I know that video is in the Hall of Fame for TVG.
Yeah, he liked him all along, and of course I was telling him how good that he was doing, and when he got back to Kentucky, I thought that long stretch would really suit him. So he was all over.
That's amazing. And then you win the Triple Crown, the first jewel, of course, being the Kentucky Derby with Justify in 2018. And that horse, we were all saying, was lightly raced at the time. And now you've got Taiba. What do you see in the similarities that may be present with the mindset a horse has to have to be able to go from just having a few races under the girth, and in Taiba's case, just the 2, to then go into a 20-horse field and throw down?
Well, I mean, you never even know, even if you've had more prep races than he's had, how they're going to handle that big field. You have to be very fortunate to come out well and get in a good, happy, comfortable spot early on in the race. But he reminds me a lot of Justify in the fact that not only are they both extremely talented, but they're both very, very intelligent. They both seem to have very high cruising speeds. I mean, Taiba was laying third the other day, but probably could have been lying second. If I felt he had more foundation underneath him, I probably would have been laying second and pressing the pace. But since he was so lightly raced and Messier was coming up my inside, I just thought it would be better off if he did that, and I hopefully they'll soften each other up and I could come pick up the pieces, which he did. And what I loved about the race was the last part of the race. It wasn't as if he was running on fumes. I mean, he really ran underneath the wire strong and would have certainly went out another 1/8 of a mile, last Saturday for sure.
Well, Johnny Velasquez was aboard Messier. He had been aboard Taiba for the debut. Both of you Hall of Famers. Can you joke around a bit if you were Johnny on Messier and you see Taiba rolling by there to the wire for the win, what's going through your head?
No, not joking around. Just making sure that he finished up good and strong and pulled up good and safe and sound at that point, because of course the next step is a Kentucky Derby, and you want to have gone through the race without having to do too much. And I think we were able to do that, although it was only his second time out.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a pretty good foundation under him. I mean, he trained as a 2-year-old all through his 2-year-old year. He just didn't run till he was 3, but I actually breezed him early on when he was 2, and he just wasn't quite ready to run those 5/8 of a mile races yet. And and so they thought they would wait on him, and they did, and I think it did him a lot of good because he grew into himself, and he's turned into just a beautiful, well-balanced moving colt. He really gets over the ground very, very, very well. It reminds me a lot of his father, actually, Gun Runner, the way he runs, the same kind of style. It's like it's as if they're running downhill, it seems like.
One of the things that I thought was so remarkable in that race was the fact that, okay, we put in a triple-digit buyer winning the debut sprinting. Now we're putting up a triple-digit buyer going 2 turns, and usually when a horse can put up a figure that big, it's them doing it on the front end, and he did it from coming from off it. So it's pretty freaky.
It really is. And again, I think anyone who watches races a lot and knows racing, I think you would have to say that he was really finishing underneath the wire strong. If the distance would have been further, I think the margin of victory would have even been larger. I mean, he was moving that well. He's certainly bred to go 2 turns, and I knew that he had a good foundation underneath him, and that he could certainly get a mile anyway, coming from 3/4, and hopefully the class would get him the rest of the way. But it was even more than that. I mean, not only did he get the mile, he wasn't running on fumes at the end. I mean, he was really finishing strong underneath the wire, and galloped out really well, and recovered really quick. He was blowing a little bit when I pulled him up, which they're supposed to. They're all going to. But I mean, it just took a matter of seconds before he caught his breath and turned around and came back and seemed to have a lot of energy left. And since then, I've gone to see him at the barn. He seems to have come out of the race really, really well, and took it all in hand. And I can't imagine if that race even moves him up. I mean, I'd just like to have the same race that he ran in the Derby, but if it moves him up, I'd take that for sure.
Well, a couple of questions to wrap up as we now look to the Kentucky Derby. How does a young horse get prepped for that? Because again, it's going to be a completely different animal. How did you feel the new gate worked out? Because I believe last year was the first year that we got rid of the auxiliary gate and then had just a 20 stall starter. And then also, how do you prepare yourself?
Well, my whole life and career, I've been preparing. I've been blessed to have ridden the Derby quite a few times. So I'm ready right now, to be honest with you. If the race was this afternoon, I'd be ready to ride it.
I love it.
But you have to wait and see where you draw. The new gates certainly, I thought, helped as far as leaving there. I felt it gave every horse a much fairer chance leaving there. Whereas before, if you drew the 1, 2, 3 hole, boy, you were actually pointed directly at the inside rail. You'd have to take a couple of steps to the right to get around the rail leaving the gate. Whereas now it's really fair as far as it gives the one horse certainly a whole lot better opportunity to get position instead of getting shuffled back so bad if you didn't break very well. And as far as the outside horse, it gave them a better shot than Newgate did, because you're not so far out. I mean, whereas before you were literally breaking on the outside fence. I mean, if you took a step out, you would actually bump the outside rail. That's how far out you would be. The only thing that they're narrow. They're very narrow, and they're European gates. They're not made to have a starter in there with you. That's the only tough part, as we all saw. Joe Rosario lost his iron leaving the gate last year because he bumped into the starter. Literally took his foot off the stirrup. So they're very narrow. That's the only thing you got to work with. So you need a horse in there that behaves himself very well. And so far, Taiba seems like he really doesn't mind the gate at all. He stood very well the other day, and Johnny said he stood very well when he rode him first time out as well. And he's had a lot of gate work. And then you'll have to talk to Tim on as far as the work schedule they're going to put him on to get to the Derby. What's that going to be? I'm not really sure. You'd have to talk to Tim about that. But I know Tim's just really happy with his energy level and the way he came out of the race.
Well, it's so exciting. He's going to have this massive crowd, obviously, roaring right there in the grandstand. But all the other horses will as well, and they're only all just 3 years old. And as for you seem to be ageless, but you are also poised to make history in another way. Bill Shoemaker, he won the Derby at 54. How old are you?
I'm 55, so I'll have an I certainly have an opportunity to break that record. I'd like to have it.
I mean, well, that was on Ferdinand in 1986. I just had to double check my note. And then also, here's the thing I would say. This is going to be my final question to you because I want you to just take it and run with it. You were inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2003. Okay, so next year it will be 20 years since you reached the pinnacle of being celebrated in this sport as, again, a Hall of Famer. And here you are. You don't. It's like you don't age mentally, physically. You are just still out there attacking this game at the top level. Why has racing been, and why does it continue to be a sport for you?
I think just the love for the horse. To be honest with you, I truly enjoy being around them. I really enjoy riding. I enjoy riding every bit as much as I did when I was 20. I mean, I'm having that much fun, and of course, getting the opportunity on these types of horses makes it that way. And early on in my life, I had decided to take up physical fitness and make it a way of life, and it's really paid off for me. Ren, I've been having personal trainers and working out in a gym anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week. Since I was in my 20s, I make it a point. Matter of fact, as soon as we get done with this interview, I've got an appointment with my trainer to work out this morning, and I think it's really paid off. Especially, we don't do the running. If you can keep your body good and strong and fit, and as we all know, getting the opportunity to have done this, the experience. Done this for so long, the experience means a whole lot, especially when you get up into these top caliber races where there's a lot of pressure and a lot goes on. There's a lot of horses. With 20 in the Derby, experience certainly helps, and of course it helps to be on an extremely talented colt like Taiba is, and a horse that has a high cruising speed, and you can place him in where you feel comfortable. So that's all going to help. And good Lord willing, he stays happy, healthy, and sound, and given an opportunity, the sky's the limit for this colt.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing that trademark smile of yours come the first Saturday in May. Everybody, Mike Smith, Hall of Famer, Taiba in the Derby. We're going to be keeping our eye out as all the preparations continue. Until then, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.